always in this sacred land of Bharat, the word Brahmana meant someone born in a Brahmana family. But nowadays, there is another type of Brahmana also, ISKCON Brahmanas, who may not have been born in Brahmin families, but who are widely accepted as Brahmins because they do the things that Brahmins are expected to do, leading a pure dharmic life, spiritual practices such as worshipping deities, chanting japa. They give spiritual guidance, they're spiritual leaders. So we have two types of Brahmanas, born Brahmanas, caste Brahmins, and ISKCON Brahmins. Most caste Brahmins, people born in Brahmin families, nowadays work as paid employees, which technically puts them in the role of a Shudra. This talk is especially aimed at people of Brahmin caste whose forefathers would have been temple priests, temple cooks, astrologers, ministers in the government, that means advisors to the kings, to the Maharajas, teachers, spiritual guides, gurus, and all the other occupations traditional for Brahmanas, who are always expected to have a strong religious, cultural background. Brahmins have always felt themselves to be superior based on Shastric statements. And actually, in secular life, we often find that they're in prominent roles, which no doubt bolsters that pride because Brahmanas, by caste, constitute a small minority of the Indian population, but they tend to outperform others despite reservation handicaps. Or maybe because of it, because they have to work damn hard to get ahead. A disproportionate number of Brahmins work in jobs requiring high intelligence, hard work, diligence, working in IT, for instance, which all kinds of things, which bring in high incomes. However, in their struggles to get ahead, many Brahmins have largely lost the Brahminical culture of their forefathers. Previously, they used to be highly respected, and one major reason for that is because Brahmins used to have such a high level of religious practice. So I can simply suggest to born Brahmanas everywhere that you again take pride in your religious culture and not just the Gaurav Se Kaho Hum Hindu Hai kind of thing, but really taking pride in your religious culture by following it very strictly. I'm not saying you're not following. Many Brahmanas do already, but very few maintain even some basic practices that previously marked them as Brahmanas. You're not a real Brahmin if you don't practice strictly. It's not just by birth. According to Bhagavad-gita, we have Lord Krishna's description, Shamodamastapachocham kshantir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, cleanliness, tolerance, straightforwardness, knowledge, which means knowledge of Shastra, and practical intelligence, how to apply that knowledge, and deep faith in Shastra, in the Vedic knowledge. These are the qualities, Lord Krishna says, by which Brahmanas work. So if you can put aside your pride and acknowledge that many non-Brahmanas by birth, including mlechas by birth, like myself, are actually practicing the Brahminical culture, often in a better way than many born Brahmanas are. So if you can put aside the pride of being a Brahmin by birth and actually practice as a Brahmin, how glorious that will be. You can take up the practices that were followed by generations of your forefathers. A Brahmana could never be considered a Brahmana unless he studied Shastra, scripture. So why not do that? Again, I'm not saying that you all don't do it, but really take it very seriously. Learn Sanskrit if you can, if you don't already know it. I must recommend, for the present age, studying the books of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, because he has taken the most important Shastras, Gita and Bhagavatam, and explained them in a manner just suitable for people of the present day. It's wonderful that since His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada went to America in 1965, a whole upsurge, a revolution of the true Bharatiya Sanskriti, of the true Vedic culture has taken place. And now millions of people all over the world are studying Shastra. And people like myself with not by birth any Vedic cultural background are learning Sanskrit shlokas. Before Srila Prabhupada went to the West, Shastra study was becoming less and less common, even here in Bharat. But now it's all over the world. And here in Bharat also, huge numbers of people, mostly from non-Brahmana backgrounds, are daily studying Shastra. It's no longer the preserve of mostly the traditional born Brahmanas. You're getting left behind when you should be leading the way. It goes to show that Krishna's teachings in Bhagavad-gita, the teachings of Shastra, the Vedic knowledge, is meant for everyone, but especially it should be taken up very seriously by you. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita at the end of the 9th chapter, Mang hi partha vyapashritya yepi syuv papayoneyaha striyo vaishastata shudras tepi yanti parangatim. King punar brahmana punya bhakta rajashayastata anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajasvamam. Lord Krishna says that anyone who takes shelter in me, even if they be of lower birth, and Krishna particularly mentions in this context Vaishyas, Shudras, and women, if they take shelter in me, Krishna says, they can attain the supreme destination. But then Krishna, if they take shelter in me, Krishna says, they can achieve the supreme destination. But then Krishna goes on to say, then what to speak of the pious Brahmanas and the devotees among the Rajarshis, the pious kings who in this material world where everything is temporary and miserable, worship me. Imam prapya, having taken birth in that situation, it's expected that someone who's taken birth in a family of Brahmanas and pious Kshatriyas, they should worship Krishna. They should be on a higher level. Another major practice that Brahmanas always used to do is 3 times daily Sandhya Vandanam. You may think, well, how can we do Sandhya Vandanam? At midday, we're working people. Well, in many workplaces throughout the world, Muslims are given time to take off to do namaz. So why not for Hindus to do their Sandhya Vandanam? If somehow you can't do that or you can't feel like that, you can chant the holy names of Krishna, which is the essence of Sandhya Vandanam and of all spiritual performances. Traditionally, Brahmanas, both Vaishnava and non-Vaishnava, would daily chant Vishnu Sahasranam. You can do that. Or better still, you can take up the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Performing puja at home daily is also essential for Brahmanas. So if somehow or other you're not doing that, then you should start, and you should wear dhoti while you're doing that. Actually, it's shameful for someone to call himself a Brahmana and not do daily puja, not chant mantras. And what to speak of those who are supposed to be Brahmanas and drinking alcohol, watching porn, having illicit sex, eating meat. Of course, there are Brahmana lineages in which meat eating has been going on for generations. But that should be yagya shishta, as Lord Krishna describes in Bhagavad-gita. Overall, it's not good for Brahmanas to eat meat. But especially in those Brahmin families where vegetarianism has been the norm, which means most of them for generations, it's a big fall down for the present day Brahmanas to do those things which their forefathers would not dream of doing. Again, Brahmana being employed in some company, not really the proper Brahmana, used to have tilak. Brahmana required to have a shikha, to be cultured in behavior, cultured speech, not low class, being materialistic after money, should have higher spiritual goals. Here's an anecdote. Some time ago, how long? Maybe 15 or 20 years ago, I can't remember exactly. I was at a festival in Srirangam, which, if you're from Tamil Nadu and you're from a Brahmana family, surely you must know Srirangam, major Vaishnava center in Tamil Nadu. So in Srirangam, I was at a festival, and there was a young man, Brahmana, chanting from the Divya Prabandham, chanting so beautifully. Of course, I couldn't understand what was being chanted. I had to be told it was from the Divya Prabandham, but just the intonation, and it was so beautiful and so devotional. So that young man at the time, he was a relative of one of my disciples, and after some time, maybe a year or two later, I asked that disciple about the devotee who had been chanting so nicely. And I was told that he is now in a position in America with some multinational corporation. Money is required for parents in old age, for your own family, and for getting your sisters married. I became disappointed that due to the social and economic conditions, that someone who really wants to be a good devoted Brahmana had gone away to America. Not that he gave up his culture in all respects, but I was told that he would go into his office in America with his shika and tilak and no problem. After some time again, maybe a year or two more later, I asked about him and was told that his company had sent him to work in their office in Bangalore. But in Bangalore, he's told he couldn't come to the office of the same company with his shikha and tilak. He had to remove it. It was no problem in America, but in Bharat, they wouldn't allow it. Just see the condition, miserable condition. By the way, you could also see my video called Tamil Brahmanas and the Bhakti Revival about how quite a few Brahmanas from Tamil backgrounds, it's probably true in other parts of India also, they're leaving their corporate jobs and coming back to do the traditional worship in temples that their forefathers did. So we're calling on the Brahmanas to practice spiritual life seriously. It may not be that everyone can just quit their present occupation, but definitely you should practice spiritual life seriously. You're meant to be spiritual leaders. But it's not just by saying, I'm a Brahmana, I'm wearing a thread. You have to be real Brahmanas. You should know the conclusion of Shastra, that in this age, there is no method for spiritual advancement more important than chanting Harinam, the names of Hari. And this is accepted by all sampradayas, by Vaishnava Sampradaya, Shankara Sampradaya. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Kalo Nastreva, Nastreva, Nastreva Gatiranyata. From Brihan Naradiya Purana. In the age of Kali, there is no other way, no other way, no other way to attain the proper destination of our life than Harinam. Harinam, Harinam, 3 times said. From the highest spiritual perspective, it really doesn't matter. And even in so many ways, it doesn't matter which caste you're born in. The real point is to come to spiritual consciousness. There are many scriptural statements in this regard. For instance, in Bhagavatam, Canto 7, spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, who was born in a family of asuras, Daityas to be precise. Prahlad Maharaj said, Viprad Vishadya Guna Yutad Aravinda Nabha Padaravinda Vimukhat Svapachang Varishtham Manyeta Darpita Manovachane Hitartha Pranang Punati Sakulang Natu Bhuri Manaha. If a Brahmana has all 12 of the Brahminical qualifications that are mentioned in the Sanat Sujata, part of Mahabharata, even if you do have all the Brahminical qualifications, except this most essential one of being a devotee of Krishna, and if you are averse to the lotus feet of Krishna, such a person is certainly lower than a devotee of Krishna who is a dog eater. Svapacha literally means one who cooks dogs and eats them. But a devotee, even from the lowest strata, the lowest birth, who is dedicated to everything, mind, words, activities, wealth, life, who is dedicated everything to Krishna, such a devotee is better than such a Brahmana by birth, or even a Brahmana who has all qualities except being devotee, because the devotee can purify his whole family by his devotion, whereas the so-called Brahmana in a position of false prestige cannot properly purify even himself. This is the version of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then another verse, Chandalopi dvijashreshto hari bhakti parayanaha. Hari bhakti vihinascha dvijopi shvapajadamaha. Even if one is born in the family of a Chandal, if one engages in Hari Bhakti, if one is attached to Hari Bhakti, the devotional service of Lord Sri Hari, such a person is the best of the Brahmanas, or best than some better than people born in Brahmin families, but even a Brahmana who is born in a Brahmin family but is devoid of devotional service is truly a Chandala. How about that? Anyway, best of all is to give up all this identifying oneself as a Brahmana or whatever, and identify oneself as an eternal spiritual being, an eternal servant of Krishna. Sarvopadhi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchate. This is bhakti. When one gives up all these designations, I am a Brahmana, I am an Indian, I am a Chandala, whatever it may be. When one gives up all these identifications, which are temporary, and is attached to Krishna on the spiritual platform and serves Krishna with all one's senses, that is bhakti. So, whatever kind of body we're in, it's temporary, whether it's a Brahmin body or whatever kind of body it may be. We should take up Krishna consciousness most seriously. So whether you're born as a Brahmana or not as a Brahmana, whether from a Vaishnava family background or not, everyone should come to the ultimate spiritual platform of taking up Krishna bhakti, Krishna consciousness very, very, very seriously. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to give up your secular life. You can add Krishna consciousness to it. We who are blessed to be admitted into the Sampradaya of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, on his order, as we have received it from Srila Prabhupada, we aim to make a spiritual revolution to save the world in its darkest hour by propagating the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To make this spiritual revolution successful, many thousands of properly qualified Brahmanas are needed to lead this peaceful revolution. And you who have the background of Brahminical culture should take the lead. Join us. Take the lead by being real Brahmanas, fully pure and spiritual Brahmanas, and not just Brahmanas in name only. Please forgive me if I made any offenses. No offenses meant. Please think what I said very seriously. Take it up. Hare Krishna. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotir gamaya mrityo ma mritam gamaya. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi.